Now, the UK's economy will grow faster than expected this year as the country bounces back from the devastation of 2019, COVID-19 that is. That's according to a new report. The International Monetary Fund says it expects the UK economy will grow by 7% this year. This is a huge increase from the 5.3% growth that the body's economists had predicted back in April.
Yes, but the UK's economic growth this year is likely to be in part because it had so far back to bounce from last year's fall. Of all the G7 nations, the UK was the worst hit in 2020, with output dipping 9.8%. This year's 7% growth puts the UK neck and neck with the US, but the American economy merely shrank by 3.5% last year, suffering far less than Britain, while the IMF's World Economic Outlook highlights a widening gap between richer and poorer countries as they look to recover from the pandemic. Well, to discuss this further, we're joined by Maurice Golden, the MSP for North East Scotland and Shadow Cabinet Secretary for the Economy, Fair Work and Culture. Thank you for joining us this morning. On one hand, this is really good news. It's higher than they projected before, but it's sort of a reflection of the fact we're coming from such a low bar in the first place.
Well, I think it's brilliant to see output bouncing back. The projections are that the UK would have the same growth as the USA, the top of the G7, and that's excellent news. You're right to point out that we've still got some way to go, but I think the UK government measures in terms of the vaccine rollout and economic support go some way to show why this growth is to be expected.
Right, I suppose it can't all be put down to the fact that the economy contracted quite a bit, because only in April we were expecting a 5% bounce back, and now it's a 7% bounce back. Is this mainly down to the UK government's success with regards to the vaccine rollout, in your view?
I think there's really two parts to this. One, as you correctly highlight, it's the vaccine rollout, with almost 90% of people receiving their first dose. 46 million UK residents have received it, which is fantastic. We're also seeing 7 out of 10 receiving their first doses, 34 million people, and that rollout has been an amazing success for the UK government. But I think there's a second part to this, and this is the economic support from Rishi Sunak. You know, investing £407 billion into the UK economy, into the businesses and families, with furlough support at, protecting 14 million jobs. That's just absolutely wonderful. Safeguarding jobs, protecting families. And it's worthwhile noting that Lisa Nandy described that furlough support as wasted money. Well, that's something I vehemently disagree with.
Well, there's certainly true that furlough has helped smooth out our recovery from this, but I'd put it to you, Maurice Golden, that the Chancellor is also ready to hit businesses with quite a large whack of tax in the next couple of years. We're expecting business tax in this country to rise as a result of his economic plans. Won't that choke off the successful recovery that we're about to see?
Well, I think there's a tough balancing act, and I think Rishi Sunak has shown that he's willing to step up to the plate to balance the needs of business growth with the requirement for further taxation. We've seen that in terms of corporation tax moving up to 25%, but also I think that the Conservative Party is the party for business, and we'll continue to see business support, such as the £100 billion that's already been invested in business to keep them growing, as well as the plan for jobs, which will help business grow, and our international outlook of global Britain, which should, through the 70 trade deals that have already been agreed, worth around about £900 billion, that will also offer opportunities. But you're right, there's a balance between taxation and supporting business to grow as freely as they possibly can.
And of course, you're over there in Scotland, and I want to ask you about Scotland and what the Scottish economy you think will be looking like. We know they've been much slower to open up. Nicola Sturgeon has been much slower to open up Scotland. Lift restrictions, we're hearing that next week she'll sort of make that final decisions on when they'll be lifted, and the vaccination rate has also been much slower. So is the outlook for the Scottish economy, do you think, much worse than for the rest of the country?
I'm certainly more concerned. The SNP have what can be described as a dysfunctional relationship with the business and community in Scotland. Often business is last in the queue to receive any information or updates. And during the COVID pandemic, they were only allowed a couple of days or sometimes a matter of hours to implement new restrictions, while business support grants were announced, and very often businesses were waiting weeks, if not months, to receive that support. So there is an issue in Scotland in terms of business support. And indeed, just yesterday we heard from the SNP, Nicola Sturgeon, obviously failing to meet her own target for 40-year-olds to 49-year-olds receiving their double vaccination. So that is a problem. That's something that I take very seriously and will continue to scrutinise the SNP in the Scottish Parliament.
And just very quickly, do you think that public opinion may be starting to change? We've seen that COVID case rates in England have begun to fall pretty quickly despite that opening up. Now, we don't know if that'll sustain, but it looks like there's very positive news here. Do you think that Nicola Sturgeon's reluctance to open up quite so quickly might come back to bite her now?
I think it certainly could. I think while the UK government has been cautious and sensible in terms of opening up, and we have had to experience some delays, I think what we're seeing now is the benefits of that in terms of the economy without an adverse effect on health. And I would urge the SNP here in Scotland to ensure that we remove restrictions in a safe and responsible way, like the UK government have, and allow people to go about their lives and enjoy themselves the way we can, as I did last week when I was on holiday in Cornwall.
Well, Maurice Golden, the Shadow Economy Secretary in the Scottish Parliament, thank you very much for giving us your time this morning on GB News.
Thank you. Delighted.